Hey guys, you startled me there. You caught me cleaning out my fingernails here with my old Arkansas toothpick. Actually, this is a imitation kukri, but it's still just for effect, just funning with you. But no, I want to talk about something that many of my friends have asked me along the way over the years, and for different reasons. They've seen me doing different things like doing rain catchment systems on my metal roof building that I have here, and setting up things like that, and just trying to be prepared for pretty much whatever could happen, whatever could come my way. Protect my family, protect my house, my investments, my homestead, my animals, all that stuff, my vehicles, my property, and one of the questions that many of my friends have asked me over the years is, should I bug out or should I hunker down? And I guess that depends on a number of factors. First of all, I think you got to ask yourself, what is the threat? What am I responding to? If it's an NBC, nuclear, biological, or chemical attack, your best bet then is to get the heck out of there. No matter how good of a setup you have, unless you've got a NBC proof bunker, then you better get out of Dodge as quick as possible. And you need to know which way the winds predominantly blow, and which way that, if something like that did happen in a major city that's near you, maybe let's say you live outside of the city, you need to know which direction those winds are going to be blowing, so that you can stay out of that path, and hopefully, meet your people, your family, meet them in a safe location down the road. Like biological attacks, when you look at that, that's a little different, because we're assuming it's like a super flu or something like that, or some kind of a biological, a typical type virus, or something like that that's going to get you. In those situations, most of the time, best thing to do is stay home, hunker down, stay in your place, that you can go buy rolls of duct tape, have those on hand, have some plastic on hand, so that, if an event like that were to happen, that, you could bring all your people back to your homestead and hunker down, or even your apartment in the city. If that's where you're set up, then you could probably do that, and it's usually, I think, about 30 days. So you need to have quite a lot of water, and, food store, and just ways to take care of yourself, basic hygiene stuff, things like that you're going to need. You need to have, at least 30-day supply of that stuff, so that you can get through pretty much anything that comes your way. We're not going to get too far off into the weeds of what to do with things, your human waste and stuff like that. You can figure that out. Hopefully you're smart enough, you'll be able to figure that out. You don't want to do what they did, and I believe it was New York City a few years back, where their plumbing failed and the grid was down, and people were just using the restroom out in the hallways and stuff. And of course, within a day or two, it was disgusting, and probably drawing all sorts of flies and disease and other stuff like that. So there are some special things that you need to do to take care of your human waste in that sort of event. But number one is get it away from you, so you don't want to be near it. Let's get on to the next one. The next one is natural disasters. That those can, of course, strike anywhere. The area that I'm in is prone to tornadoes and earthquakes and wildfires and all sorts of different things like that. Those are the three worst ones. And in fact, one time during a wildfire threat that was coming through here, the sheriff pulled down our driveway and basically told us, he said, "Hey, I'm not telling you have to leave, but I recommend it." And so we started loading up everything we could, because we were suddenly in a bug out situation. Now, luckily for us, that right at the end of the night, it was toward the evening, and the winds tend to die down around here at nighttime. So the winds died down. The firemen were able to get the thing put out before it burned up any more houses. But it burned, tens of thousands of acres, and we were in the path. So that's one of those things where, no matter how good you're set up, sometimes you may have to get out of Dodge if everything around you is burning up. No matter where you are, whether it's tornadoes or hurricanes, or problems that are associated with living on the coast, I've never lived along the coast, but I see it happening on the news and stuff like that. Those are things, special circumstances. If you live in a flood zone, like let's say, New Orleans, and you know that every so often it's going to flood there, or Houston, Texas, let's just say that, it's going to flood there probably about every 10 years or so. And when it does, if you're not smart about it, you may be one of the victims. You may end up dying because of the deal. And you don't want that. That's number one thing about survival, is protecting yourself, and trying to do it in a way where you can also be a lifesaver to other people that have not prepared, because, we know them. There are many of them out there. They've got this attitude of when the stuff goes bad, they're just going to come steal it from you. And I don't think it's going to be as easy as they think, because people that are prepared for that have thought about all the different possibilities. This is right up there on the same level as NBC attacks, and it's in scariness, because if something like this goes down, it's happened too many times in human history when suddenly there's a major catastrophe, and let's say the power grid goes down, or there's an economic collapse. We wake up tomorrow and a solar flare has hit the earth. Boom, the big one that NASA's been talking about since like 2012. Let's say it hits the earth, and it hits the USA side of the earth. The Western world is immediately thrown back into the 1800s. How do you respond to that? For one thing, most of your electronics, even stuff that you didn't have hooked up to the web or hooked up, turned on or stuff like that, that's going to be fried, just because unless it was in a Faraday cage, or unless it was protected electronically somehow, that it's probably not going to work anymore. Some of your older vehicles will be exempt from that. Like if you had points and you have a regular standard distributor driven, like old Ford, Chevy, or Dodge V8 from the 60s or 70s, pre-electronic ignition, if you have a vehicle like that, theoretically it should still run even after a massive EMP or something like that. Now, I don't know if a solar flare actually does the same thing as an EMP, but these are kind of, to me, it's the end result is what matters. You're without power. So maybe it's just a solar flare and your car still starts up and your phone still works, but it's not connected to anything because there's no power grid, there's no phone company anymore. So how do you handle that? Those are the things that you really need to probably consider more seriously than some of the other ones. Of course, natural disasters is high up on the list too, but that's area specific. But this one affects all of us, and many people have done. I've seen videos and heard radio shows about people talking about the vulnerability of our grid from either an EMP or an outside attack, I'm sorry, I said that backwards, either a solar flare or an EMP, like an outside attack from an enemy country. Those are things that I think would send humanity into turmoil overnight, because we would have, let's face it, there's so many people that even if our government declared martial law and tried to get in there and pulled out all the National Guard and everybody, all the services, there's not enough of them to patrol and control the situation. It would be such a catastrophic event that a lot of people would just freak out immediately. And other people that depend on medicine and machines to keep them alive, of course they're going to be casualties, instant casualties. And if you have people like that in your life, you're going to have to make the necessary precautions to provide some backup power for that device, or provide them with some extra. And it's difficult because you can't go down to the doctor anymore and just get extra medicine and say, oh yeah, hey doc, I want some extra antibiotics, so in case I get cut in an off-grid situation or a grid down situation, that I won't have to amputate my hand or something. And the doctor won't give them to you because, for one, a lot of that stuff has a shelf life, and with the drug problems we have in the United States today, that stuff is so controlled that you just can't do it anymore. You just can't do it. So the best thing to do in that event is start looking into natural things, and and buy things that you can for now, like the example I gave. I cut my hand or something. Well, have some alcohol around, a bunch of it. Have some Neosporin or whatever flavor stuff you like to stick on your cuts to help you heal up. Get you some iodine or monkey blood, as we used to call it, something like that. Have your medicine stock ready for in the event that something like this happens. That way you won't be caught off guard. Also, it gives you something to barter with. Maybe you have a whole bunch of monkey blood and your neighbor has a whole bunch of band-aids, and you guys can work out some sort of a deal. So that's going to be essential, having something or a skill that you can barter with or barter for. So of course, in the event of an economic collapse, it could be your dollars are worthless. You might just want to use those to light your wood stove or something, if that's the case, because as we all know, since they took us off the gold standard in the early 70s, I think 71, 72, Nixon took us off the gold standard and the US dollar, and ever since then it's been doing this slowly. And once in a while it'll bump back up, but it's the trend is once your currency is not backed up anymore by something something real like gold or like some kind of an asset, then it's essentially just someone's word that they've given you that they're good for that. It's worthless at some point. So right now it's got value because you can still go use it. But after a situation like a grid down or an economic collapse or a nuclear, biological, chemical attack, your money's probably not going to be worth much. So you might as well try to use some of it now to buy things. And this is sort of the way I look at my prepping stock, is that I buy things that we were going to use anyways, but I just buy more of them. So if I see a sale on white rice, let's say, because in the right conditions, white rice will virtually last you forever. Then instead of buying the 1 pound box, I'll buy the 5 pound box or the 10 pound or the 20 or whatever. Buy a big bag of it if you can get away with that, and store that in the right way. And there's lots of videos on YouTube here where you can go learn about how to preserve food and stuff like that. I'm not going to get into that, but it's important stuff to know before the stuff hits the fan. I think the way it would go down in a situation like this with the economic collapse is you would have almost instantly, you'd have gangs that are already there, and the mob mentality would kick in. And especially in the cities, they'd be a very dangerous place because the gangs and the mobs would pretty much control the cities instantly. And mob mentality is bad. You want to stay away from that. Those people would start coming out, to the countryside. So if you've got a homestead that's, 20 miles outside of a city or something, or even 50, they're eventually going to come out that way. And one of the things I've talked about with some people over the years is that it's important, before anything goes down, to get to know your neighbors around you. Know what kind of people you're living next to. Is this guy over here, a hunter? Does he know about, firearms? And does he know about, skinning animals and whatever that skill, you kind of try to assemble based on your circumstances of where you are, your area. But around me here, I've got a lot of hunters and a lot of people that are into shooting sports, just a lot of country boys, so that's good stuff. And, country girls too, but that's good people to know, because, I know one of my neighbors is a nurse, and I know all sorts of people right around here. One guy that does electricity work, and one guy that works for the gas company, and one, so those are things that might give you that little bit of a leg up on the competition, or at least kind of know what's coming. Maybe the gas company guy could tell me, he could say, hey, you know what, use all the gas you can, because in 2 days from now, there's not going to be any more, because we're on natural gas here. So, my screen just went squirrely. These are just things to think about, and to answer the question, I really can't do it. I can't really say, in this situation you should bug out, or in that situation you should bug in. Each one is is going to be dependent on what the circumstances of the moment are. You know, there are just many different possibilities, and I'm sure if you watch like Doomsday Preppers and some of those guys, you know, some of them are silly. Some of these people are just silly with it, you know, and I'm sure they're doing that to get views and stuff like that. But this is stuff I've given a lot of thought to over the years. I do have, how can I put this? I do have a multitude of ways to bug out of my current location. And I have another place to go. So I feel pretty good about that. I also have a pretty good place here to hunker down in certain circumstances. In other circumstances, because I'm close enough to a major city here, I would have to run. And knowing which way to run, how to run, what highway to get on, especially when the main highways are blocked off, or perhaps they're just so backed up that you can't go anywhere. You got to know ways around. So knowing your area is important. Knowing the people around you is important. Having a plan to get your family together after the stuff hits the fan is very important. You know, so you guys should all converge in one location, and you should pretty much know, you know, you should have a talk with your family about this and say, hey, you know, daughter, son, if you're at school and X happens, then you need to do this. And you need to have at least a way for them to immediately make contact with you, because, you know, I remember several instances over the years where emergency situations have happened, you know, big ones like 9/11 and stuff like that. Well, the phone grids went down for, I mean, a multitude of hours. And, you know, I don't think many people expect that. They expect to be able to pick their phone up and get a hold of their family and their friends and stuff, but all cellular networks went down. It was 5 or 6 hours without cell phones that day. So it can happen again. And what are you going to do? Where do you go? What are your kids going to do? Where are they going to go? Knowing those kinds of things. What your wife, you know, knowing how she's going to get home, knowing how you can go get her if you need to, that kind of thing, you know. So in some of the future videos we're going to talk about, I'm going to show you a couple of what I think are the perfect bug out vehicle for if you need to get out of Dodge. And I'll talk about some of the stuff that I think is important to stock up on in the event that you need to bug in or you need to hunker down. So anyways, guys, yeah, I appreciate you stopping by, and I got some other stuff to get done around here, so I got to get up off it and get back to it. But hit that thumbs up, hit the subscribe, hit the bell notification. It helps the channel out. All right, guys, we'll see you next time.